الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So we're discussing the chapter of making Masah upon the leather khuf. I told you before we terminate the lesson, you must remind me, I want to discuss the new contemporary socks we have. So we were discussing the time frame. We know for a person, a resident, it is 24 hours, and for a travel it is 72 hours. So that is pretty simple. But the only the Masah comes about now, if for example, a person's position changes, he was a resident and then he started traveling, right? So then what happens? Or maybe he was a traveler and then he became a resident. So what is the position then? So we discussed this. The moment your position change, then your hukum also change. Your law also changed. So you were a resident and you started traveling. So then obviously your time frame changes, or your period of grace or your period of allowance, it changes from 24 hours to 72 hours. And on the contrary, also, if you were a traveler and then you became a resident, you can return to your hometown, or maybe you decided to stay in a particular place for 15 days or more, then your position will change to 24 hours. And then you will not calculate it from the time your position changed. You will have to calculate from the time you made hadith for the first time. So if you were a traveler and then you stated to become a muqim, so then now you say from the time you made hadith, you will have to count 24 hours, and the 24 hours is up, then you'll have to remove your khuf and you will have to wash your feet. You don't have to make a whole new fresh wudu again, right? Okay, read the new lesson, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ولا يجوز المسح على الجوربين عند أبي حنيفة. So, no, sorry, I'm reading wrong. ومن لبس الجرموق نه تمدينه. Okay, بسم الله الرحمن. ولو أقام ومسافر استكمل مدة الإقامة نزع. So I was just explaining this earlier. If you are a musafir, right, and all of a sudden, say some simple example, you are traveling from, say you're going to your hometown, right? Just to understand by example to make it easy. So you are traveling from Joburg and you are going back to Utenek, right? So when you left Joburg, you were musafir all the time, right? So when you came into Utenek, you're now mukim there, right? So ولو أقام ومسافر, he made إقامة while he was مسافر, استكمل مدة الإقامة. So once you came to your hometown, by default, no matter what your intention is, you will become a mukim in your hometown, right? So since you're mukim, your time period now is only 24 hours. So if the 24 hours has elapsed since you made hadith, you'll have to remove your khuf. You'll have to nazar, right? All right? لأن رخصة السفر, because the rukhsat, the permission, the grace, the latitude, rukhsat, the concession, yeah, okay, that's the best word. لأن رخصة السفر, the concession of travel, لا تبقى بدونه, will not remain without travel. You'll only have that concession, even though you started your journey as a musafir, but the moment your journey terminated, that concession of travel is lapses now. So now you're back to the default position, which is 24 hours. So if your 24 hours has lapsed, you'll have to remove it. But in lam yastakmil, but say for instance, from the time you made hadith, 24 hours is not completed as yet. 24 hours is not completed. Then you've got the grace, you've got the latitude to carry and complete the 24 hours, right? وَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَقْمِلْ أَتَمَّهَا, you can complete the 24 hours. لأن هذه, because this is مدة الإقامة, the time of a resident, and you are a resident, وَمُقِيمٌ, so you will be bound by that time. Right? Okay, read the next one. Right, let's look at, right, okay, we done that. وهو مقيم, what are the ibarat you read now? Right, okay, we covered that one. Read the next one. خلافا. Okay, look, before we look at the next masla in the kitab, let's understand it like this here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Say, for example, A person made wudu, right? Listen nicely. A person made wudu and properly, nicely, and he put on his khufs, right? And after he put his khuf, he wore a jarmuk. Now, what is a jarmuk? A jarmuk, to understand simply, is, you can so to say, is like a protective covering to protect the khuf. I would say it's like wearing a shoe. Like you don't walk around with your socks here. Why? Because you want to protect your socks. You wear a shoe, right? So what he done is he wore his khuf, and on top of his khuf, he wore another leather garment over his feet to protect his feet. Or rather to protect his rather, but to protect his khuf, right? So it was, so you can say in simple words, this thing that he wore over his khuf, it is of a, we're going to discuss this just now. We don't the discussion until we don't discuss the conditions of a khuf, right? So you wore another protective covering over his khuf. So just take it to that mean, like, and I would say in our instance we say you wore a shoe, for example, like how, because we normally wear shoe over our khuf. So وَمَنْ لَبِسَ الْجَرْمُوكَ فَوْقَ الْخُفِّ مَسَحَ عَلَيْهِ. So he made wudu, washed his feet properly, completed his wudu, and then what he done? He wore the khuf, and he wore the khuf, and then it's coming later in the kitabia, before making hadath, that's critical. Before making wudu, he wore another protective covering, and I would say even it will be a shoe on top of that, right? So we'll say Masah alay. So when his wudu eventually break, he can even make masah over that. Like, we get this, you have this boots, this army boots, leather boots, etc., etc. Some that get on khilafan is Shafi. So Imam Shafi say, no, you can't do that. Why? فإن يقول فإن يقول البدل لا يكون له بدل. He said, look here, the original obligation was to wash your feet, isn't it? The khuf was a substitute. What was a khuf? A substitute. So he's saying, how can you get a substitute for a substitute? How can you get a substitute for a substitute? For example, if I'm supposed to be there, I put you, I say, look, man, you are my substitute. You must sit in my place here. You don't have the mandate and the right to get a third person in. He's going to be your substitute. That's what I'm saying. So he's saying, so the badal is proven from the hadith. So it's fine. But how can you get a badal for the badal? How can you get a substitute for the substitute? Say, فإنه يقول البدل, this is badal, لا يكون له بدل. How can it be a substitute for that? Right, here's our proof. Read our one here. Right. Okay, stop there. So firstly, remember Sahib Hidayah, he always gives a naqli dalil proof. He gives a textual evidence from the Quran, from the Hadith. So he starts with the textual evidence. He said, Wala Bismillah Rahman, Walana, for our proof, Anna Nabiya Sallasum Masah al Jarmukaini. First proof is Nabi Sallallahu made Masah on his Jarmuk. I told you in take Jarmuk here to mean sock, which is a protective covering for the khuf, right? He made Masah upon the Jarmuk. Right. Now that is the Naqli Dalil, the textual evidence. What is the Aqli Dalil? ولأنه تبع للخف استعمالا وغرضا. Say, look here, listen nicely. The Jarmuk, it is, you can say tab'un, you can translate it as the Jarmuk. It is tabi', it follows it. It follows the khuf. You can say like it is part of the khuf. If I say I'm tabi, or you say you are tabi of me, I'm tabi of you. Ana atba'u Luqman. Wherever you are, I will be there. If you are not there, I won't be there, right? So you say, look here, this khuf is not a badal, it's not a substitute. It is becomes like part of the khuf. The jarmuk, it becomes part of the khuf. Why it becomes part of the khuf? Isti'malan, in usage. Exact same function which the khuf is functioning is the same function itself. This is also serving the same function. Wa and also the same purpose. So like how the khuf is there to stop the najasat or the not najasat to stop the hadith from going into the feet. The khuf is there to stop the hadith from going into the feet. Similar here, the jarmuk is also there to stop the hadith from going into the feet. You understand what I'm saying? So remember, I told you, if you understand this abstract concept that you made wudu, and then after you made wudu, you put on your khuf. So when you made hadith, that hadith comes and it doesn't go into your foot because you got a waterproof, strong, robust material that prevents the others from going into the foot. So it settles on the khuf. So when you make masah, you just wipe that hadith off. Although it's just an abstract thing, but it's just to understand. The same thing, saying, look here, if you wore a khuf and then you put a jarmuk on top of that, right? Now you made hadith. So because the jarmuk is similar to the khuf in that it is a robust, strong material or whatever, when the hadith came, it settled on the jarmuk. It never go onto the khuf underneath because the charmuk presented it. It became like a double protection. It became just basically like wearing two khufs, like wearing two khufs. So maybe if you go to a place where it's very cold, like the UK and North Pole or something, and you want to wear two khufs, then you understand it myself from this here also. So it's though you had two khufs, and like how the one khuf serves the purpose that the hadith, it doesn't go into the foot, it's stopped on top of the jarmuk will serve the same purpose. Fasara ka khufin dhi taqain. It seems that it has become as though like it is a khuf, a two-layered, a two-layered khuf, like you're wearing a khuf for two layers, right? So we're saying, wa badlun an rijli la an khufi. So this double layered khuf, we answering Imam Shafi. Imam Shafi, how can you get a substitute for a substitute? No, it's not a substitute for a substitute. This two-layer khuf becomes a substitute for the foot. You understand what I'm saying? So the khuf and the jarmuk joined it together, it becomes. So from this masla, you'll understand something also, that if a person made wudu and he put on his khuf and then he put his sock on, and his sock also fulfilled the criteria of being a strong, robust thing, and then he never make hadith as yet, and he put his shoe on before hadith, then if his wudu break, he will be able to make masah upon the shoe. But it's a separate masah. I'll discuss that with you another time, with making salah with your shoe. And see, it must cover also, yeah, it must cover that area, right? Come again, Ma? Yes, yes. So if it's of the same durable material, it should be fine also. It must cover the ankle in it. Yeah. So see there. So you see, فَصَارَ كَخُفٍ ذِي تَقَيْنِ. So وَهُوَ بَدْلٌ عَنِ الرِّجْلِ. So it is the two khufs together becomes a substitute for the foot. بخلاف, see that I told you, بخلاف ما إذا حدث إذا ما لبس الجرموك بعد ما أحدث. Contrary to where he wears the jarmuk after he made the hadith. Right, I told you, look at I explained the scenario already. One is you wore the khuf and then you made the hadith, your wudu broke. Now you wore the jarmuk after that. Now you wore the jarmuk after that. Now you want to make masah. No, why? Because when you made the hadith, what happened? The hadith was settled onto the khuf. So by you making masah on the jarmuk, you're not making masah, you're not wiping away the hadith from the khuf. You only wiping it away from the jarmuk. And the hadith is not on jarmuk. The hadith is on the khuf, right? لأن الحدث, because the hadith حل بالخف, it already settled upon the khuf before you wear the jarmuk. فلا يتحول إلى غيره. So you can't say no, the hadith moved from the khuf and it came onto the jarmuk, and now you just have to make masah of the jarmuk. No, it's there, right? So ولو كان الجرموك من كرباس لا يجوز المسح عليه. So here I was telling you, remember I told you the jarmuk, it must also have the qualities of a khuf, which is tough, durable material, because that is the thing that stops the hadith from going into the feet, right? So if the jarmuk midkir basin was from message here, okay, it's a question here: do you have to remove the jarmuk? You don't have to remove the jarmuk. Although, like if I was telling you today, like your jarmuk is like your shoe. If your shoe has got najasat on it, or, but also you remember from the adab and the etiquette of salah, it's not far as is that when you in sajda your toes must bend. We'll do this at a later stage. So if your jarmuk is of such thick nature that your toes won't bend, then you'll be losing out that reward of practicing on that adab and that etiquette. And also, if you like normally our shoes they've got najasat because the toilets in previous times you go out in the field, etc. And so if you got the najasat on your charmook or your shoe, whatever, then obviously your salah will not be valid, right? So the other thing, ولو كان الجرموق من كرباس لا يجوز المسح عليه. If the jarmuk was from cotton, is something which is permeable where water, if you sprinkle some water, like a fair amount of water, it will just go through. It will not be correct. Why? I told you because I told you this, that here the jarmuk is serving the same purpose as a khuf. It is preventing the hadith from going through. Are you with me? لأنه لا يصلح بدلا عن الرجل. Because remember, we already understood that the badal of the foot durable, must be durable material, right? Just as saying, لأنه لا يصلح بدلا عن الرجل إلا but yes إلا أن تنفذ البلة الخف. But yes, let's say the jarmuk was like of a cotton nature, and by making masah, the water went through the sock and went on the khuf, then it'll be fine. Because if the water went through, as though you are not wearing the sock in the first place, as though you are making masah directly on the khuf, as though you're not wearing the jarmuk, as though you're making masah directly on the khuf. Are you with me? Now, next come so I hope that's clear, inshallah. Next come the masla, the difference that we have with the Salafis. The Salafis, they say you can just make masah on your regular khuf. Those who travel to the Haramain Sharif and you'll see, or even if you have any Salafis in your masjid, you'll see them, they go into the hotels, they're making wudu. After they make wudu, they just take the normal socks out of their foot and they make masah. We say you cannot make masah. We say you cannot make masah on a regular sock. There are three conditions which I'm going to discuss. It will come during the course of our discussion here, but I will discuss it separately in detail for you also about the three conditions for which before a sock qualifies as a khuf in Shariat. I will discuss it just now, but some of it will be discussed here. So the first thing is see, وَلَا يَجُوزُ الْمَسُ عَلَى الْجَوْرَبَيْنِ in the Abi Hanifa. The jawrabain here, just for the timing, take it to mean a normal, regular sock. Like our old style, normal cotton socks. Let's just take it to mean like that. So you say Masah is not permissible on a normal stock, right? In the Abi Hanifa, according to Imam Hanifa. Anyway, just whilst we're discussing this, um, uh, um, there's one of the teachers by Madrasa Talimuddin. He was 2 years of age. Was Mufti Zakaria Magda. He married also Mufti Saab's daughter. When he was when we went for Umrah, we met him there. He wrote a whole book supporting these three conditions to say that the conditions we mentioned, and the reason he brought the book to Medina, he wanted to meet Sheikh Awama. Sheikh Awama is one of the foremost scholars of hadith today. He wanted like Sheikh Awama to guide him on how to set out the book and to write a foreword or anything. So the conditions we're gonna mention here, inshallah, it has been proven from the hadith, and there are books to be written on it to show why we say you can't make masah on a regular sock. You can only make masah on a khuf, a leather khuf, right? So that we will discuss a bit more about that. But for the moment, just here, Imam Hanifa says, وَلَا يَجُوزُ الْمَسْحُ عَلَى الْجَوْرَبَيْنِ إِلَّا بِحَنِيفَةٍ. It's not permissible to make masah on you can translate this like this, on a regular sock according to Imam Abu Hanifa. إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ مُجَلَّدَيْنِ أَوْ مُنَعَّلَيْنِ. Unless the regular sock has got leather soles. So the same fabric that is used to make a khuf, if you've got it sewn underneath the foot, right? Mujalladaini, or on top of the foot. So like this here, underneath here, you got leather soles, and on top you got, oh yeah, this is called uppers. Isn't it called uppers? So you got a regular sock which got leather soles or leather uppers that is sewed onto the regular sock, or maybe the sock is manufactured as such that the uppers and the soles of leather. That's what إلا أن يكون مجلدين منعلين. وقال يجوز إذا كان ثخينين لا يشفان. So صايبين got a bit more latitude. They say no, you can make Masah on a regular cotton sock as long as it's tahinain, it is thick, right? And la yashifani, water does not go through it. You can say like that. Water does not go through it. So like something similar maybe to your sock there. And he said, why lima ruya? Because of what has been narrated. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مسح على جوربين, that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made masah on his jawrabain, right? So this is a proof. And he said, وَلِأَنَّهُ يُمْكِنُ الْمَشْيُ فِي إِذَا كَانَ ثَقِيلًا. Now remember, for the time being, just remember this year. We say from amongst the conditions, although this is Sahibai's opinion, but the fatwa we say from amongst the condition to make a masa upon a khuf is that you must be able to walk about 3 Islamic miles, right, with the sock before it perishes. Before it perishes. So yeah, so that's Imam Hanifa's call also. So Sahib is saying, look here, a thick cotton sock, a thick cotton sock where the water simply won't permeate it. You can also make masa on it. Why? ولأنه يمكن المشي, walking is possible in it إذا كان ثخينا, when it is thick, and وهو أن يتمسك على الساق من غير أن يربط بشيء فأشبه الخفة. And here in this ibarat, which also Sahibin is trying to make the case, but while he's making the case for permissibility for a thick sock, we learn the second condition of a khuf. The second, I told you, the first condition of a khuf is what? You must be able to walk about 3 Islamic miles without perishing. The second condition here is that it must be able to stand up on its own without being elasticized or without being tied up. Now if you take your khuf and you put it up without putting your foot in it, and you make it to stand like that. If it stands up like that, stands up on its own, then that follows that condition. Now your regular sock, look here, your regular sock, like here's my sock here, is the shin part, can it stand up on its own? Doesn't. See, it falls down. Kahud, but it falls down. But if I had a leather sock here, I'll show you that thing stands up on its own. What it does. So they're saying, so Sayyid is still building their case, and he's saying, so we done 2 conditions. وَأَنْ يَتَمَسَّكَ عَلَى السَّاقِ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَرْبُطَ بِهِ. For the time being, I want you just to accept here, we're talking about the leather sock. I'm going to discuss afterwards, inshallah, before we wrap up the discussion, I want to discuss, this new type of sock, this new durable material, plastic, rubber. We'll discuss that. But for the moment, just understand what he's saying in the kitab, right? So Sayyid is saying, look here, the 2 conditions that are found or in the normal khuf, they also found, Johannes, you can walk with a thick sock. That's the one condition. The second thing he's saying is that, well, it stands up on its own, min ghayri an yarbuta bi shay'in, without being tied. They're saying, فَأَشْبَهَ الْخُفَّ. So he say, look here, this thick sock, it resembles a normal sock in these 2 things. Sorry, it resembles a khuf. So like how you're allowed to make masah on a khuf, you're also supposed to make masah on this, right? So Imam Hanifa doesn't agree with him. وَلَا أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي مَعْنَى الْخُفِّ. Imam Hanifa says, look here, you saying it resembles in these 2 aspects, but it does not resemble a khuf. A khuf is a thick, like waterproofish material. When you say waterproof, doesn't mean if you put your foot in the water, water won't come in. In order for it to be like that, it has to be like a watertight thing. Just what I mean is like if you throw some water on, the water won't simply permeate and go through it. So we say, وَلَا أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي مَعْنَى الْخُفِّ, that this, a thick sock, is not like a khuf. لأنه لا يمكن مواظبة المشي فيه, because muadha means continuous walking is not possible in it. A normal thick sock of cotton or wool, it will perish after a very short while, right? إلا إذا كان منعلا, and except if it has a leather sole so to the bottom. Remember, she said إلا أن يكون منعلين. Then وهو محمل الحديث. Then we say, here's our answer to the hadith he quoted. Remember, Imam Shafi said, yeah, it took here, or sorry, Imam Shafi Sahih said that Nabi Sallallahu made masah upon thick socks. Where is it? إلا أن يكون, yeah, lima ruwi anna Nabi Sallallahu ala jawrabayhi. Nabi Sallallahu made masah in his socks. We say no. Here they saying he made masah in socks, but that socks that he had it was muna'al. It had leather at the bottom, right? Right? وعنه أنه رجع إلى قولهما, and also narrated upon that he وأنه that he retracted إلى قولهما to the opinion of Imam Sahibain وعليه الفتوى, and the fatwa is upon there. So it does not have to be of a rubber leather nature. If a cloth, a wool, whatever, it fulfills the conditions that you can walk with it, it stands up on its own, etc. It has the three conditions, then you can also make masa upon it. But anyway, time is up. We'll build upon this and expand upon this again tomorrow, inshallah. Best.
Assalamualaikum, Mufti Sab, if you're still there, ask a question.